Okay, I'm pausing because no one can hear me and he thinks that they should, not just demo.
Sorry guys, you should have audio now. I don't know what just happened.
Okay, thanks for fixing it. So what I was saying here is if you look at the modifiers that are up on the screen now, how many of these do you know what they are? Can you identify them already? Have you tried them before? Because that's the lineup of what we're going to take a look at today. Now, one thing I want you to take a look at that is in common is 4 out of these 5 modifiers are hard light modifiers. So the light that comes out of them is going to be crisp. It allows you to get more dramatic shadows, more defined cheekbones, all of that kind of stuff, which for me, as a portrait and fashion photographer, that's what I love. And if I want to light my subject so that I have a spotlight on her, a spotlight on the background, texture of light, these are the modifiers that really help me do that. So let's dive into some weird ones to start off with. All right, so both of these are hard light modifiers. And I know that when I look at a modifier, even if I've never tested it before, I can actually analyze it without taking a single shot and have an idea of what the light is going to look like, because there's certain commonalities. So without talking about which one these are so far, let's look at some of the features. So first of all, one of the things I can tell is both of these modifiers will definitely give you defined shadows because they're direct light. So what that means is the light is directly hitting the subject. Yeah, it might bounce around the modifier, but it's not diffused, it's not bounced. Anytime there's direct light, means it's harder light. But then you probably already noticed the difference here. One is silver and one is white. So anytime that I see something that is silver, I know that the highlights in the photo, highlights on the skin, for example, are going to be more specular. And what specular means is basically you see a little bit more shine, a little bit more texture to them. Whereas when something is white, it's usually going to be a little bit smoother. So if there is the exact same modifier in 2 different finishes, the white one will be smoother, a little bit more forgiving on the skin, whereas the silver is going to be a little bit poppier, give you more contrast, maybe even make colors look a little poppier. So far, even just looking at these 2, okay, you know it's going to be hard light. This one will be a little smoother. This one will be a little bit more specular. But then the next part of it, of course, that's nice and loud and great for audio. Well, okay, well, it's a gong, okay?
Hey, they wanted audio.
Looking at these 2, the next thing you can see is shape. I can immediately look at a modifier and just know by the shape what it's going to do with the light a little bit more. And so I'm going to have you hold this one real quick. The easy way to think of this is I always think of light like water. So let's just pretend that this is a bucket of water. I scoop out that water, and when I throw it, I can hit the people in the back because it's going to maintain the shape of this modifier. Also, if I throw it, it's pretty much going to hit this line and then maybe spread out a little bit at the end, but for the most part, it stays pretty concentrated. Whereas, not that this one is super shallow, but you know, I throw this water, it's going to hit you probably. It spreads out a little bit more. So when you look at a modifier, if it is a deep modifier, that means it's going to have a narrower spread of light. Now this one in particular is the first one we're going to demo. This one is called a Telezoom reflector. It is also known as a long throw. And so long throw, it's kind of in the name. It can throw light in a concentrated way over a long distance. I liked when we were talking, Seth, earlier, he said he likes how it can chuck light. That's what it does. It keeps the light concentrated, but also even over a long distance. So this might be if you're trying to illuminate somebody and you don't want to have the light in the shot and they're 15, 20 feet away, you can hit them with a modifier like this. The other thing it does is it creates like a really nice pocket or beam of light, which we'll take a look at in a second. Now, this one is the long throw or the Telezoom. This one is something called a Magnum reflector. And so we've got our long throw Magnum reflector, but there are like 5 in between. So there's a long through, there's a Telezoom, there's a narrow beam, there's a wide zoom, and basically you can look at them and just be like, all right, how are they spreading out the light? That's the idea behind it. And then what are the finishes? So if you get into hard light, there are so many new tools for you to buy if that's what you like to do and you're nerdy like that. All right, so you can put this on our main light. So whenever you go, by the way, the tools that we're going to be using today, I'm using all Profoto, but many of these modifiers do exist for other brands. If you go to their spec sheet, they'll actually tell you the amount that the light is spreading. So you can see here, this one says that a long throw is between 30 and 56 degree spread. Now, just so you know, there's a couple things that might affect this. This is getting a little nerdier, but whether it is a flat front light or the ones with the dome in the front, that does make a difference. But with Profoto specifically, on the modifiers, you can actually zoom these. This is why it's not called a long throw with Profoto, it's called a telezoom. And what that's based on, it's based on how far onto the light you actually place it. So there's little markings, if you've ever noticed, on the side of it that'll say like 4, 5, 6, 7. That, where you place it, will actually adjust the spread of light. And so that's why it is variable without having, a lens or something to vary. All right, so because we're in the studio, I wanted to show you my studio use of this. Again, I think a lot of times people do use it on location because of the distance, but that's that type of kind of like halo or beam of light it creates. This was an editorial I probably shot 10 years ago, and I was just going for like aggressive, hard light, almost like a spotlight, but not like a Hollywood spotlight. I wanted to be a little stronger. And so those are both done with a long throw. So we're gonna test it out here, and he loves when I say this. It really shines over a long distance, but we don't have a long distance here. He hates when I say that. Listen, it's fine, don't worry. Okay, so it's a cozy studio.
Find this much space in New York for free anywhere else. Defy you.
Okay, fine. Although this is not related to this. One of my first really successful editorials I ever did was in my makeup artist's kitchen, and we did paint with light because I had no gear and no space. It was beautiful. So DIY works too. All right, Daphne, I'm gonna have you sit right here in the middle. Thank you. And I'm gonna start with you here, and then I'll move you back in a minute. Thank you. Now we're gonna take a couple test shots here, and what I'll probably have you do as well is I'm gonna, if you can lower it if you need, zoom in and out so that they can see the difference. All right, so thank you. Thank you. He's a grip master. Okay, will you raise it up just a little bit? And actually, will you face this way for me? Is that okay? Perfect. So, all right, just a couple things. I'm gonna be shooting everything tethered. I wasn't hooked up, so let's get that sorted. I'm shooting into Capture One. Capture One is a program intended for tethering. This is what I use for any of my shoots. And I do so, so I can check my exposure and the quality of light, but some of the things I'm going to be showing you here, without zooming in close, you might not actually see some of the changes in the specularity of the skin, for example. So we're going to compare some of those side by side. But the other reason that I shoot tethered is this is just a lighting demo, but typically when I'm doing a fashion shoot, I want everybody to see how their part of the equation is contributing, so like hair, makeup, wardrobe, so that I can focus on light and pose, and then other people can worry about how the hair is looking and the makeup looking and that sort of thing. All right, so let's see. I'm turning on right now. Let's test. Please work. I'd love you to work. Great. Perfect. I'll get a quick test on this. You all know. You all know. If you shoot tethered, you know the pain. I have no idea. It said it was tethered, so let me just hook it into the other one. Can I move this so I can get to my port? Thank you. Thanks, Lex. Great. Thank you. Thank you, my lovely problem-solving team. All right, we're gonna point this all at you. And here's my usual order. My usual order for things: battery, card, turn it on. I don't know, that's my order. Do you have an order for when tethering? Okay, this is good. Although it's saying auto right now. There you go. See, okay, great. Let's try that again. There's no reason it should say auto. Okay, hold on. Almost there, restarting. Nobody look at my screen. I have no idea what's there. Just kidding, it's just my presentation. Okay, restarting. Don't send.
Yeah, while she's doing that, you guys can hit like. She feeds herself on likes. So.
Is that me?
Yeah. See her? Look at that, it's already going up.
Thanks, guys.
No starving Lindsays, look at that.
I do, actually.
And don't forget to subscribe. We're doing demos once or twice a week, so if you're new to this channel, this is not the main Adorama channel. Hit subscribe. Oh, yeah.
While I problem solve this, that's fine. While I figure this out, couple other things for what I am using is I'm going to be shooting on the Canon R5 Mark II and the 24 to 105 2.8. It is big. It is slightly on the heavier side, but it is fantastic. It's one lens that I use 95% of the time for pretty much everything that I do because it gives me from 24 to 105 at 2.8. I don't really need other lenses.
Now, just try that.
I understand. Thank you. Okay. You're getting featured here. Just kidding. Oh, of course I turned it off as it worked. Okay. Let's see. Yay. Okay. We're just going to do that.
We'll talk about it.
Got it. Okay, quick test. Amen. Okay, perfect. Now, I do want to check what my, no, I don't want to share. I'm just kidding. I did want to check my color temperature just to make sure I'm close. Okay, so one of the things you'll notice instantly is I did say this is a hard light modifier. And so if you look, when I zoom in, there's definitely specularity on the forehead. This is what I'm talking about with the shine. Now, a lot of people are afraid of hard light modifiers because of this sort of thing. It does show texture, it does show shine. Two things. One is if you're doing a lot of portraits and people are paying you to shoot, I'll use HD powder, which is called high definition powder, which is originally for TV. That is a neutral powder. It does not matter the skin tone. You apply it to the skin and it mattifies it. Now, the other thing that I use will be blotting papers. Blotting papers absorb oil, like if someone is actually greasy, but I always say, like, I don't go like, hey, you're looking real greasy. I'll be like, oh, can you do this? My lights are making you a little shiny. It's just what they do. I kind of take that approach with it. But the other part of it is if you look, it does emphasize texture, and that is just a side effect of the light. If you don't like that and don't want to retouch, then this light's not for you. Okay, so Telezoom first demo. Can I have you stand against the background? I'm going to grab this out of the way. All right, so can you point that right at her centered? All right, beautiful. Great.
You want the lights on?
Okay. On or off?
You want those off?
Yes, oh my gosh, that'd be so helpful. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Just keep that model light on, okay?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, super helpful, thank you. That's actually a really good point, is whenever I'm shooting, I turn off all ambient light so I can actually see what the light is doing to the face. All right, so what you see is that it is giving us this pocket of light, which is what you saw in that editorial, but how I made it more concentrated would be twofold. Can you go right up against the background? And then Lex, can you bring this way, way into her? Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Great. So as with water, if I'm far away and I throw water, it spreads out. If I get close to somebody, I can just illuminate there. So this is exactly what I was doing in that editorial, but she's gonna have shadows in her eyes. So I'm just gonna have you lift your chin up. And I know that my light got closer, so I'm gonna turn the power down. Beautiful. Great. So you can get that sort of dramatic effect to it. Now, can you back it up real quick, Lex? Now, if I talk here, do I need to tell you to turn lights on? I think I do. You okay? Sorry, I'll make you work. Next up, for every single modifier I own, if they make a grid, I get a grid. This is what I recommend to all of you. Grids look like different things depending on the modifier. So for example, this strip softbox has a grid on the front of it. And this grid, what it does is it helps control the spill of light. So if you've ever shot in a smaller space, or you have a light pointed directly back at camera, you may have run into lens flare before, right? Like, so you have those rim lights lighting the side of your subject, but then you get haze on the side of the frame. Adding grids controls that. It shrinks the spread of light down. So it is super useful. It's practically useful, but it's also creatively useful. So with hard modifiers, grids usually look something like this. And it does depend. Most of the time, there's only one size. Sometimes they'll have different sizes. And just the thing to know is if there are different sizes, the smaller the number, the more concentrated the light. So like, this is a 10 degree. If I put on a 20 degree, the light will spread out more. If I put on a 5 degree, the light would be tighter. So what it's going to do is it restricts the spread of light, which allows me to have a more dramatic result than even what you see here. So Lex, if you can put that on, and we'll talk about this real quick. Now, as you saw, I had a white one and a black one. The black is the standard, like pretty much all grids are black. This is a new tool or a new variation. Some brands have this. This is new to Profoto though, the white ones. And what it does is it gives you a little bit smoother gradation on the edge. So like I said, it concentrates the light, but then it lets that concentration fade out instead of being so abrupt. The white one will be that. And it also is a little less contrasty on the face. So let's test it. Did you fit it in there, Lex? So we the Telezoom has been with me, as I mentioned, more than 10 years, which means it's made 3 studio moves and endless photo shoots. So sometimes it gets a little bent and I have to put it back together. So thanks. Perfect. I'm going to bring it in even more.
Say hi to Ab.
Ab? Hi, Ab. Okay, cool. Oh, actually, I have no idea about this power. We're going to probably go up a little. Let's see on my screen. Pretty good. So if I just compare, they weren't in the exact same position, but just to show you like how much more it restricts the beam of light. Can you bring it in a little bit more? We'll just try to make it a little bit more similar to the original position. Yeah, good. And then Daphne, take a smidge of a step to your right. Good, right there. Perfect. Okay, cool. Great. So let's now compare those 2 side by side with and without the grid. If I switch it over to a white, it'll be a little bit smoother of a fall off. Okay, good to go. So that first one, Telezoom. I'm going to make prettier images as we move on, like I'll actually sculpt an image, but I wanted to introduce you here in the beginning just to the modifiers. So Telezoom, you can change the zoom on it literally to change the spread of light, and it chucks the light over a long distance. So now let's take a look at our next unusual modifier, which is that Magnum reflector. Now, something else that's cool about the Magnum reflector is whatever light you have, when you add a Magnum reflector, it doubles the power of the light. Like the way that it concentrates the light, it will take a 500 watt strobe. If you put that on, now it's acting like a 1000 watt second strobe because of the way it controls that spill. Now, these have a less of a concentration. So remember the other one, it went to like, what was it, 56? This one can go to 50, but it's with the Pro head. So this is definitely a little bit more of a spread of light. This is what I wanted to show you. So a Magnum reflector can look like a lot of things. All of these had a Magnum reflector as the main light. Now, with no modification, as is, silver, you're going to get something that looks like the middle one, where it is more specular, but on commercial shoots, because I mentioned I do a lot of commercial portrait and fashion photography. On commercial shoots, this is the one that I pick if I want it to look sunny. It's meant to look poppy. Typically, it's not the only light. Think like a Macy's campaign. It'll be a hard light main with a soft light fill. So what it does is it pops the subjects out from the background, adds that like sharp jawline, crisp edges, and then some sort of, maybe it's a big softbox or it's a bounce light to fill in the shadows to smooth it out a little bit. So my recommendation is if you think hard light looks a little too harsh, use the hard light as the main, but use something soft as a fill. And that will make it a little bit more palatable, a little bit more pleasing to the eye. So the middle one was just direct. The ones on the left and right were using something called a sock, or a piece of diffusion. And basically a sock is like the same material that's in the front of a softbox, but it looks like a shower cap that can pop over the modifier. And what it does is you still get some of the punchiness of the light, but it really cuts down on the specularity, and you can see that in those shots, right? She doesn't have any of the shine to her face. That's the exact same model, just maybe each shot was about 30 minutes apart, and the light looks totally different. So for this one of the things I like to use it for quite a bit is if I add the diffusion, I can make it look like old Hollywood lighting. It's not spot on, but it's pretty good, because if you actually look in the past, we're going to take a look at a modifier later that really is an old Hollywood light. We're going to look at a Fresnel. But another modifier they would use for old Hollywood was something called a scoop light, which is basically a big silver dish, and then they'd soften it with diffusion. It's the same idea. So we're just taking modern day tools, but helping us simulate the look in the past. So let's give this a test. Do you have a, oh, should I take your reflector, or do you have another one I can borrow?
You want a board?
Anything's fine. Yeah. Great. Okay.
Silver weight.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, come a little closer. All right, great. So first thing, because I didn't demo it before, let's talk about being short. Hold on. That's part of the side effect here. I'm going to grab this one for a sec. I want to zoom it so you can see, but I'm too short to reach it. Okay. So here is with it zoomed at its widest distance. It is hitting her from head to toe. Also quite a bit above her head, actually. So I can kind of do in and out. So let's see. Let me take one test here, and then I'll have you zoom it out. Let's make sure it's still tethered. Again, we'll make pretty photos soon, I promise. Okay. So we're going to go full length. Okay, now can you zoom it the other direction? Great. So you'll notice, oh, barely. Well, it's because there's a double shadow. When we zoom it back out, the edge actually gets a little bit more crisp. Because this is a flat front, it's actually shaping the light a little bit different. So what I can see here from my modeling light is I see a double shadow. But remember, the modeling light's not the same as the flash tube. So modeling light versus what's actually firing. So let me make this pretty, because I don't want to just give you all ugly photos. Let's put you in this chair. I'm going to do a beauty shot with this. Thank you. And I'm going to do the reflector underneath after I take a test of her. And will you, let's see, do you like this side of your face better?
It doesn't matter.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I noticed when she sat, she was sitting this way, but maybe it was because she was facing the audience. Will you turn this direction? Yep, that's perfect. Okay, let me give it a test here. And again, I'm not sure about my power. We're going to test it. Okay, obviously too much. Toning it down a bit. And by the way, for this, I can always set with these Profoto strobes, I can always set it to TTL, which gets me pretty close, and then tweak it. Or I could use a light meter to get accurate, but I'm a big fan of making it look good. So whatever makes it look good, meaning I'll dial it up and down till I dial in the light. So here I might check my histogram, but that's looking pretty good to me. Okay, so in seeing this shot, you can see that it is definitely hard light. Like, there's definitely specularity, but look what it does to her cheekbones and jawline. Like, you're not getting that level of cheekbone with a soft modifier, like, you know, a 3x4 foot softbox, for example. So we've got a ton of definition there. Let's try the reflector underneath. Grab that right there. Let's just lighten this up a little bit. Perfect. And that's the silver side, right? Yep, just checking.
Yeah, it's the silver side.
Perfect. Beautiful. Great. Kind of opens it up a little bit. And then was that the C?
Yeah.
Great. I'm going to turn on. These are not specialty modifiers. This is a totally normal one. This is actually, I don't know how to turn it on from here with this modifier, this trigger. We're going to use a 3x4 foot softbox just to light her jawline a little bit. And I'm going to have you look your eyes a little higher, but don't hurt yourself. All right, now let me turn that. Is that actually on? Mm-hmm. Okay, there we go. I was trying to get the modeling light on. Perfect. Let's take a look. Pretty. Okay, beautiful. And then eyes back at me. Okay, cool. So hard light modifier, super crisp definition. Let's switch over and see what it would look like if we take the Magnum reflector, but do the white one this time. So it'll be a little less specular. So we're going to switch that over. And can you zoom it to the same position? So she was zoomed to the 2 position. Yep. Here you go. Go for it.
No.
And by the way, if I did see that and I really didn't want the highlights, I would probably switch over to putting on a sock, or if I've got the white one. One other thing of why this works for old Hollywood is if you are shooting a Caucasian skin tone, or to someone who's very pale, and you switch it to black and white, and you pop your contrast, do you see how you don't really see the highlights on her forehead as much? Here's why, is you've got a highlight against a highlight. When you make the image black and white and then you raise up the contrast, it takes this highlight and brings them closer together. So basically it's a highlight on something that's similar tone so you don't notice it as much. If you had a darker skin tone here, I would pretty much always add the sock, or make sure you have a good makeup artist that's making sure there's not too much shine. Okay, so let's look at it. Let me undo that. Let's see what it looks like with the white. Now, I'll probably need to pump up my exposure a little bit because the silver increases the output of stop. The white is less than that. And look back at me. Not yet. I'm just going to compare this. Yeah, it is. Okay, this is being super nerdy. Let's do the reflector. There is a difference. There definitely is a difference. I see it. And I'll turn your chin this way a little. Good. Okay. So let's grab that one to maybe this one. Yeah, I mean, the one on the left is the silver, and it's just a bigger reflection, and it's a little more specular. The one on the right is the white. So it's just kind of a smaller area. It's a little bit smoother. Medium difference. We were talking about this before. One of the other things you'll see is if you look at the edge of the light, if it was on a background, it will be a little bit smoother of a transition there. All right, so let me do one pretty shot of you so that you actually have some pretty shots, and then we'll go on to the next modifier. Let's do, I'm gonna go really, really tall. Look up this direction. Beautiful. And I'm actually gonna maybe feather the light down. Ooh, yeah, I'm gonna feather this light down because I've got that strong edge. I am going to use it in the background to give me a gradient if I'm tall enough. There we go. Good, perfect. So I like pointed it down so I see that halo behind her. Let's test. Yeah, pretty. Yeah, super pretty. Great. What? Tell me.
Philippe in the chat is asking, what do you think about the smaller Magnum, the OCF Magnum made for the B10 strobes? So yeah,
they have really small Magnum reflectors that they make for the portable strobes. I don't use them. I don't think they're super useful. Like, they're not giving me a big enough quality of light to make it look soft. The fact that they're smaller, it gets even a harder quality of light. So I only ever use them if that's what I have on and I'm trying to control the spill of light a little bit instead of just having it bare bulb. Hardly use it at all. Okay, so I think that looks pretty. All right, let's switch to our next modifier, if you don't mind. Okay, I'm gonna go back. Great. And I'm really excited about this one. So those two, we're trying to warm up here. We started with some like hard light modifiers. There's a whole bunch of them. Lots of different brands have them, but they're not the main ones that I grab, but I love this one. So this is one of my modifier babies. I love this one. And we grab it all the time. So this is a Fresnel. And whenever you picture old Hollywood lighting, or do you see those portraits people do where they're posing with old Hollywood lights? It's always going to be something like this. Those ones in the photos, typically, if you want them with props, they're Mole Richardsons, if you're ever looking for those sorts of things. So this is the Profoto Fresnel. So a couple things about Fresnels. First of all, because they were used so much in old Hollywood, basically like spotlights, they instantly give you that old Hollywood feel, especially when you turn something to black and white. But here's a couple features of it. You'll notice in the front, there is a lens. This is the same sort of lens that you would see in a lighthouse. And the reason that this lens is so great is that it does concentrate the light. And even though it is hard light, it is smoother. It has something to do with the way that you can kind of see the shape of the lens, the way that it bends the light, even though it is hard and the edges are defined, it's not as specular or harsh on the skin. It's really, really beautiful. The other thing I love about this is on the side, it's got this little lever. And what the lever allows you to do is the same thing as the old Hollywood lights. You can either flood the light, which means you spread it out over a wide area, or you spot the light, which zooms it in, and you could just have a tiny spotlight on the face. So you get a lot of control, and it's hard light, regardless of if it's spot or zoom, or flood. So let's look at some examples, and you can put that on and turn on both backlights for me. Now, I'm using Profoto strobes. I'm using all battery operated here. We're using Profoto B10s and B10X pluses. It's kind of a mix and match of them. But they also make these modifiers for continuous lights. And so I put up an example of one of them that they have for nan light, for the continuous lights. But you see what they have in common. They have that lens in the front. Some of the Fresnels, rather than having the lever that allows you to spot or flood, you actually have to rotate them. So that nan light one that I have up there, to get it to spot, you're like kind of rotating it like a steering wheel of a car. But it's significantly less expensive. So it kind of depends on what you want to do. Both of these photos were taken with Fresnel. The one on the left is a continuous light Fresnel. So that was the one on a nan light. And the photo on the right was taken with the modifier you see here, which is the Profoto one. Both of these are kind of zoomed in to mid-zoom, like they're not completely flood or completely spot. And so you see that beautiful fall off of light on the chest. The light underneath, like the shadow on her nose and neckline is super crisp, but you can still see it's kind of glowy on the skin. So I love this modifier. Here's another example. I was doing a shoot. This was inspired by Hedy Lamarr. Hedy Lamarr had a shoot where she was kind of reclining on a half moon, and I wanted to do my own version of that. And so that was all practical. In fact, we bought the stars on Amazon, and then we hung them from little fishing wire throughout the space. And I did not want one big, broad, soft light to light the whole space, and I wanted it to feel old Hollywood because it was actually a movie promo that she had done, which was in like the mid-30s, mid-late 30s. So we took the Fresnel, and that's why you'll see it's brightest basically from her neckline to the top of her head. We had the Fresnel maybe 10, 15 feet away, and then we had it in the spot position, and that's what gives her that nice tight area of light on her face. Now, obviously, we're not working with that beautiful set, but it's actually really similar here. I used a Fresnel on the face, and then I used 2 strip softboxes as rim lights. The only other difference is I had one more light that was filling in the shadows. Now, the reason I want to make this point is this is obviously a lighting demo where I'm just kind of taking you through some modifiers, but now, as beautiful as she is, it's important what you put in front of your set. So what makes my work is not just lighting, it's the hair, the makeup, the concept, the set, like the things that I put in front of the camera. It makes a huge difference. So let's see another example. This one is actually also lit with a Fresnel as the main light. I had her laying on Mylar, so I just had a Mylar sheet. I did a Fresnel as the main light because it is a hard light modifier. And I wanted that dress to sparkle. I wanted to see all that glitz. So we had a sequin dress, a Fresnel as the main light, and there I was using a 4-point star filter. So you can actually kind of see in this, you can kind of see in this that the white light is lighting basically from her face to her midsection, but it concentrates it so it doesn't fall down the body or on the background. All right, let's switch back.
You know, Hedy Lamarr actually invented Wi-Fi.
Yes, did you guys know that? Hedy Lamarr actually invented the technology that went into Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, I think, too, right? It's related. Yeah. And gorgeous woman. Stunning.
It's also the 30s.
Yeah, amazing. She's incredible. Actually, okay, so let's do a quick test. And I'm going to preemptively turn it to black and white because I'm trying to go for that old Hollywood look. So we're going to do that already. Okay, so I have can you bring it down a little bit in height? And then try to point it back at her again. Now, let's see. And you guys can see why the modeling light would be really important. Yep. See, this is short people problems. Okay. It's true, though. You got it or no? I got it. Okay, let's try there. Perfect. All right, now, there we go. So I'll do flood first. So this is where I have the light most spread out, but because we're relatively close to her, it will be pretty tight on her. So let's take a quick test. I have, once again, no idea about the exposure, but we will figure it out. Not too bad. I'm going to go up a little bit on it. Okay, good. Pretty. Okay. Decent. I'm going to have you lower it just a little bit more. And then I'm probably going to I'm going to have you flatten it to her as much as possible. You look straight on to me. So I'm going to go for a little bit more Paramount lighting to try to lean into the old Hollywood look. With Paramount portraits and Paramount pictures, often the shadow of the nose would be directly underneath the nose. So we're gonna kind of do that look. We'll try here. And I'll just raise it just a little. Okay, perfect. Let me test that again. Then chin up just a bit, and look your eyes right here. Good, pretty. Cool. So you'd see that sort of thing where they'd have the light really high, which carves out the cheekbones and jawline, but then the eyes up, and I'm picturing like some of the actual starlit pictures right now. That's beautiful. Big sigh. Beautiful. And now eyes back at me. And now I will have you turn a little bit. You can turn your whole body to your left. Great. And now look back over at me. Beautiful. Pretty. And now one more, look your eyes right, chin that way again, but look your eyes right here. Beautiful. Just putting the catch lights back in her eyes. Okay, so right now, even though she's wearing a black top, she's basically getting lit. You can see a little detail on her shirt to here. It's probably mid-chest. So now what I'm gonna do is we are going to spot it. Like, holy crap. It can go so spotted. I'm not even, like this is the full length. I could light just her eye if I wanted. Well, we'll see about that. Can you lean to feel it on your eye? Good. I believe I'll have to turn that up, but we'll test. Wow, so cool. Like that's how focused you can get the single modifier to be. And lean a little bit this way. Keep going right there. Actually 1 centimeter this way towards me, right there. Perfect. And then chin down a little. And then will you lower it? I'm gonna have you look back at me. Great, and then chin, keep going down. Good, keep lowering it, right there. Good, and then your eyes here. Pretty. Cool. Yeah, that's beautiful. So obviously there's limited use for that much spot, but it still looks beautiful. Where's that? There we go. Okay, let me do one more. Will you raise it up to be a little more even with her face? Good, and chin down again.
That spot's also good if you're like trying to light just a necklace.
Totally. Good. Okay, great, beautiful. All right, let's go back and keep going through modifiers. So one more time, that one is a Fresnel, and this is the one that Profoto makes, but again, most brands have some version of this, and it instantly looks classic and beautiful and gives you a lot of control. So speaking of beautiful transition, speaking of putting highlights on jewelry or having control. So this modifier is my favorite for 2 reasons. Number 1, I helped design this one with Westcott, and so obviously it has to be my favorite. But the actual reason is because years ago, there was a modifier like this that I was using, and it got discontinued. And I realized how important it was to my style. So what that tool is it goes by a couple different names. Now, the Optical Spot is the one I'm showing you here. This one's made by Westcott. But as much as I want to claim it, there are many other ones that are made. They go by different names, though. You might hear projection attachment or optical snoot or anything in that range. The most important part is the fact that there's a lens on the front. Like that's what you're looking for. And they make ones that are huge, that look like gigantic bazookas. Like they're massive. They're really, really beautiful. But that would be basically like stage lights. Like if you were having a spotlight, that's the idea behind it. So how it works is when you get the hardest light is when you concentrate it or amplify it with a lens. So with that Fresnel, it's a lens in the front. That's why you're getting such hard light and you can really concentrate it. Same thing here. So you'd have a base, you pick whatever your, if it's Profoto or Bowens or whatever. And then you can actually pick different lenses. This is true with mine, and again, it's true with other brands as well. And what you're choosing is how much spread of light you're getting with those lenses. So for example, this one is the 150 lens. This is what I recommend for close-ups. This would be for the jewelry example. If you have somebody where they have a necklace on and you just want to add a little bit of sparkle to that necklace, you use this. Or I actually got hired to, I should probably bring it up. I shot a jewelry campaign it was a diamond company. And so she was shot with like a little light on her profile and then had a single stud earring. They wanted that earring lit and they wanted it in camera. You're not really doing it any other way. Like you do need something that concentrates the light so much. So this is the 50 millimeter or the 150 millimeter lens. And then This particular one also has a 50 millimeter. This is if you wanted to light a background or somebody full length. So the 50 head to toe, the 150 for close-ups. Now, a couple more features of these sorts of modifiers. Very often, they'll have these little shutters, or these little leaves that can open and close. And because it's such hard light, that's how you add a slice of light on your subject. Or if you liked that last shot that I showed you with the spotlight on the eye, you could do old Hollywood eye light, where you have that slice of light on the eye. And you would do it here by closing down the shutters. And then can I have a gobo? And then last but not least, the other thing that these specialty modifiers do is they allow you to project patterns. So here I have something called a gobo. It's called a go-between optic. You actually put it into the modifier and you can project this on the face, on the background, like you name it. So I'm going to pass this to you. Let's look at some examples. All right, so here's a really good example of the type of control that you can get from this. Now, a Fresnel, you saw in the previous example, could give you a circle on the eye. But if you wanted it to be a crisp circle where it literally is a sharp edge, you're not going to get that from a Fresnel. The reason you can get it from an optical spot is because you can focus the lens or defocus it, and it can become razor sharp. So in this one, I have the 150 on the eye and then a 50 or a wider lens on the background to give that effect. Here's just other examples. The picture on the left is with the 50, and it's not using any sort of gobos. I just closed down those leaves to look like she's standing in light coming in from a doorway. The picture on the right is using a gobo, and it's a very similar setup to what we have here. I had an optical spot in the front, but the gobo I was using was Venetian blinds. So it would give me the old Hollywood look with the slices of light on the face. And then I had two rim lights, exactly what you see here. The difference is I added a red gel so that they would have some color added to them. A couple more just showing you the types of things you can do with it. You could light the background, you could put a spotlight on the face. I will use it in fashion photography to put a slice down the middle of the model. Or the picture on the left, it doesn't really look like an optical spot. I was doing this portrait in a bar, and I wanted control because I didn't want the white light illuminating his face also hitting the bar behind him and the background. And so I popped up the optical spot, I closed down the shutter so it's just lighting his face, and it gives me a ton of control. So, oh yeah, and then I also did want to show you this. You can also give the feeling of it being natural light or sunset light. And so that is, in both of those shots, 100% artificial light. There is zero sunlight in those. What I was doing, if you can grab one of the, it's in the kit. What I was doing is I was using a window gobo. And so if you use a window gobo, maybe add a little bit of a warm gel to it. And then, you know, something, that's not the right, oh, it's not in that kit. It's okay. Yep, it's fine. You can add it, you could add a CTO or just warm up your white balance and it gives you something like that. So like the picture on the left is only two lights. It's the optical spot with the window on her. And then I bounce the light into the corner of the room to get a little fill. The picture on the right, the exact same setup. The only difference is I put one more light on her face because she was moving around a lot and she kept stepping out of the light. So it was one optical spot in the background, one light bounced into the corner for fill, and then one spotlight on her face. I used a grid, just a gridded light to illuminate her and pop her out. Now, since we're going for fun and unusual and creative, and again, I believe the people watching this are probably on their like 5th or 6th modifier, like, you know, you've got some gear. If you want more fun stuff, they actually make things called glass gobos. So we have the metal ones that I was holding up before, and those are pretty inexpensive. You're looking at maybe like $15 to $20 a piece for those. And by the way, they make thousands of them. Everything you can imagine, they've got a gobo for. Plus you can have them custom made. But if you feel like having an excuse to do cool things and spend more money, they make glass gobos. These are usually in the like $80 to $300 range. They're much more expensive. But there will be colors printed on glass or patterns. So in the previous example, when I had the window gobo on the background, let's say you decided you preferred they looked like they were in a church and you wanted to have stained glass. That's what the glass gobos would be for. It'd have the beautiful colors and intricate patterns. But again, the window gobo might be $14. The glass, stained glass one might be $300. So it depends on your effect. So in this one, I'm going to show you the first two. I've got a rainbow one that I used and then the prismatic. It's really cool because it's a piece of glass and it just looks like somebody went to town for like DIY and just glued other pieces of glass on it. Like it just looks like that. So some examples. This was the Pride Gobo. This was only a 2 light shot. I put a softbox behind the subject pointed back towards camera. So that's what gave me the pure white background. And then I took the optical spot with the 150mm lens and the Pride Gobo, and that was it. That was all there was to that shot. Now, the prismatic one has been really fun. I've used it a few ways. In this one, I used it on the background light, that back spotlight that's pointed towards her. I put it in there, I concentrated it, and then we sprayed atmosphere in a can, or haze in a can, to give us that beam of light. But now I've got a beam of light that has a ton of color to it, which is not something I have really seen very much before. Or, oh, he's got it. Here you go. This was the atmosphere or haze in a can. And then here's another example. Instead of have it pointed back towards camera for a beam of light, I wanted to have a cool color on the background. So I took the same exact gobo, pointed at the background. Now I have this cool, kind of pastel-y multicolor background. So there are many different ways that you can use the glass gobos, but just know it's more expensive. Okay, so let's play around. We're going to play around with the optical spot on her for a little bit. Okay, can you lean forward? So I mentioned a big benefit of this is not only the concentration, but the fact that you can sharpen it. So I am going to sharpen it a bit. Let's see. Great. And can I'm going to put you on this so that you can point it better for me. Okay. Great. So I'm going to have you point at her face. You can sit up a little straighter. Great. Thanks, Lex. Cool. And now I'm going to close down those shutters. And you might need to rotate it slightly. I think I'm going to do the eye light on her. And so I'm going to close the bottom and close the top. Great. And maybe I'll make it really tight light. So I'll start there. Okay. Let's test. And chin back towards me a little. Good. A little less, Lex. Okay. All right, I'm going to go up a little bit. Perfect. So the reason I wanted to show you this is if you want this effect, this is a tool you have to have, something in the optical spot / projection attachment, because you'll never be able to get those hard edges. However, probably realistically with old Hollywood, it would be diffused. So I could soften the edge a bit. And I'm going to just can you look straight onto me? And then Lex, you probably have to move that here. Good. Perfect. And I'm going to close it a tiny bit more. Pretty. We'll try that. Cool. Will you center it just so it's a little bit more even? Great. Pretty. Good. And then lean forward towards me just a bit. Right there. A little less. Right there. Cool. And now look your eyes into the light. Okay. So that is just by opening and closing the shutters, sharpening it or making it softer. Let's do the gobo though, because that's the other specialty thing. Great. So I've picked this floral pattern that I thought could be fun and different on her face, and I'm going to sharpen it there. And it looks cool. And turn your body that way just a little. Right there, cool. And then Lex, can you make sure that her eye has light on it? So just if she moves, yeah, perfect. So it's looking cool. And I'll go up just a little more. Beautiful. All right, great. So for this is the starting point, because you guys saw what I did in my work is I have multiple of these, so then I could project a different pattern on the background, and then I could add gels to all of these. Like that main light, I could throw a blue gel over it. I want contrast, I could take the back 2 rim lights and add a yellow-orange to it and make a complement. So it just gives you tons of different rooms for creativity. All right, I think I'll pop over to the presentation so I'm on time. All right, so this last one I do not have here with me because It's really big and takes up a lot of space. This last tool, I would say, is most commonly used in fashion photography, but also probably think anything in the 90s and early 2000s, if it was like an ad for a TV show, they probably use this modifier, because what it allows you to do is get even illumination head to toe. And with one modifier, you can control how soft or hard it is. So this category of modifier is called parabolic umbrellas. And so if you take a look at it, since I don't have it here, you can actually see a picture of it. In the center, there's a rod. You put the light on the rod and it is pointed back into the modifier. But then the rod, you can vary the distance in and out. That distance is what determines the quality of light. Now, what is also nice about these is that they produce this light that's like smooth but poppy. It's like if you could make like a beauty dish bigger, but
It's like a hard soft.
yeah,
It's so hard to explain.
it's hard to explain exactly because it's crisp, but it's not bad texture. I'll show you what it looks like. So here's the behind the scenes of it. And so this is why I said it's large, and they come in different sizes. The Profoto ones, it's got like basically equivalent of a 4-foot and a 6-foot. The 4-foot is the small one. And then there's other companies, I haven't used them before, but there are other companies that make parabolic umbrellas. Yeah. But so again, the idea is that the light can move in and out. So these are not processed. Or no, those ones are processed. I thought I had it behind the scenes that shows it. These are the examples of what it looks like in fashion photography. It's got that like glowiness to the skin, but you can see the light on the face looks relatively soft, but if it were soft, you wouldn't see that definition of the shadows on the floor or the background if it were really soft. Here's an example of it unprocessed. The picture on the left is when I had the rod far away from the back of the modifier. So if this is the front of the modifier, the rod was, the head was here. The reason it gives you a softer light is because it's filling more of the modifier, which means it is a larger light source. So one of the rules of lighting is the larger the light source is relative to the size of the subject, the softer the light. So with that zoom reflector, when I have it pulled really far out, it's filling the whole modifier, it makes it soft. But then conversely, the picture on the right, I took that light and I moved it all the way in so it was maybe this far from the back of the modifier. It's only lighting like like a small little circle in the back, which means it's a smaller area of light, which means it is going to be more crisp. You can see it by looking at the quality of light on the face as well as the shadows. I almost always use it maybe like 3/4 of the way in to almost all the way in. I like it when it's a little punchier because it's still smooth. But notice, same thing, it is lighting her head to toe completely evenly. This is another reason why people like it so much for those like movie posters, those sorts of things. It's one light, it's poppy, it's even, as well as with fashion photography.
Yeah, well, it's also because it's so large, it's soft, but it's so evenly directional perfectly that you'll get detail out of the fashion, but it'll look smooth on skin. So you're getting everything you want, seeing the detail, the stitching, the beadwork, all that stuff out of a harder light, but it's large, so it's soft enough for the subject.
Now, to build on it, you saw in the beginning when I talked about the different shapes of modifiers, right? If something is deeper, the light stays more focused. Cool. The parabolic umbrella that you saw how deep that is. It's really deep, which is why in both of these two shots, how I put the shadow on the background is I feathered the light. So instead of having it so that it's just faced to illuminate the background totally, I brought it a little closer to the subject and then feathered it off the background, and that's why you're seeing those shadows. So that is another benefit of using a deeper modifier. On a similar note, that's why you might pick a deeper umbrella rather than a shallow umbrella. That depth allows you to feather the light more evenly and then control it from hitting the background. So those are all examples of that. All right, so let's put this all together. These are our 5 unusual modifiers for the day. Now, you'll know what they are. So the top one is a telezoom or a long throw, which allows you to, in the words of Seth, chuck light over a long distance in a way that keeps the intensity as well as the evenness. Then you have a Fresnel in the middle, which is that old Hollywood light that you can spot or flood. Beautiful quality of light. Then you have on the top right the optical spot, which allows you to create slices of light on the subject or background or project patterns. The bottom left is our parabolic umbrella, which will allow you to have a soft quality of light that's still poppy, or it's maybe a hard quality of light that's smooth, like it's both, allowing you to light head to toe. And then last but not least, we have that Magnum reflector, which is giving us that sunny look. But if we add a sock to it, it gives us a little bit of an old Hollywood style. So these are all things I'd say, if you feel like you've got your usual kit down, but you want to try and experiment a little bit more, go for those next. All right, do you guys have any questions? Yes?
On the optical spot,
Mm-hmm.
do you lose a lot of light? Like you have to pump the light up to...
Yes. Have you tried it before and you know this?
I haven't
Okay.
tried it, but before it came out,
Yep.
I sat home and I bought all kinds of stuff, and I made my own homemade one
Mm-hmm.
where I could change the lenses. And it was frustrating me because I was losing a lot of light.
Yes. So the question was, do you lose a lot of light with the optical spot? And the answer is yes. Now, just quick caveat to this. So for this one, the reason we designed it like that is because it's really portable. You can travel with it. It's lightweight. If you want to boom it out, no problem. However, if you shoot Bowens mounts lights, Nanlite has one that is the bazooka one, and that one puts out a ton of light because the lens is this big. So that's your trade-off. It's like you can go with small and portable, but I usually shoot that closer. If let's say the distance is from you to me and I'm lighting the subject, I'm probably shooting at ISO 800 f4 to get the sort of illumination I want out of that on a 500 watt second strobe. Whereas with that Bowens one, it's massive, but it literally weighs like 15 pounds. It's crazy heavy. Any other questions? There?
I think you
Okay.
explained so much.
Oh
so
my gosh,
well.
amazing. So I planned this one, we planned it, a little late. Next one I'm doing is December 10th. I will be back if we're actually planned ahead this time. Everybody enjoy your holiday. Thanks, everybody. And thanks, Seth.